Welcome to Nat Geo's first ever scripted drama. They're not playing around. They got Jeffrey Rush, they got Ron Howard, and I think they hit it out of the park. Tell us what you think in the chat. Hit us up on iTunes. We'll be right back.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey, and welcome. What an exciting day. Nat Geo ventures into scripted television, which means the History Channel comes back to us in a very strange way. Maybe a new learning channel. It's very exciting.
Completely.
Great TV about history is here. And I'm really excited. I'm Joelle Smith. You can find me all over the internet at Joelle Monique and every week at blackgirlnerds.com. And this is my lovely panel.
My name is Elysabeth Alfano, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at dinnerpartychgo. And if you want more info, you can go to thedinnerparty.tv. So what I thought was so great about this is you're saying, history's come back. But to me, it touches on every aspect of life. So you've got war, you've got sex, you've got politics, you've got some tripped out hair. I mean, it really covers everything.
I'm a big fan of the tripped out hair. It does cover everything, and I think it's interesting. We oftentimes, I think, especially as Americans, get a lot of Einstein's later life, like when he came to America, suddenly that's when he becomes relevant to us. To see him in his youth as like a young, bustling guy, like ready to take over the world, that's kind of, it's endearing.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm so happy to get to know that other side of him, because like you say, we have this one sort of college poster picture of the man sticking out his tongue, and that's the one way that people see him, but there's so much more to him in terms of that youthful energy about being a rebel and breaking the rules. I really like to see that.
Yeah, let's dive right into the story, because there's a lot of story in chapter 1, and it starts kind of gruesome with an assassination
and sex. It starts with murder and sex, basically.
Einstein's life, guys. This is what we're here to talk about. Life and death. It's happening. It was kind of shocking to me. It was not just racial slurs, not just the gun assassination, but like also the grenade at the end of it. It was just like, you will be dead.
Yeah. So, I knew that this was coming. I knew that Einstein left Europe right on the heels of World War II. And so I knew that there'd be some racist elements in it. But what I didn't know is how visceral that initial murder would be, and how close to home it would be to him, and how early on prior to World War II that started. So I knew that things were going on in Germany from like 1932 on, but I didn't realize how close that would get to Einstein's life that early.
I think a lot of times, again, as Americans, we enter the war pretty late, even in our stories. It's either as America comes in, or Nazis have already taken over, Hitler wins second time around kind of situation. What's interesting to me is like, it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
And the blatant kind of attitudes everyone takes, we're like, oh, well, he didn't win.
Yes.
Of course there are crazies out there, but
yeah,
he didn't win, so don't even really stress it. It's totally fine. This kind of laissez-faire attitude that many people have taken on. And it's only sweet Elsa who is like, we have got to go. It is dangerous.
Yeah, no, she's got her finger on the pulse for sure. And a little side note here, I did not know. So that's his second marriage, Elsa. And of course, we'll get into his whole love life. But I did not know that was also his cousin. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I did not know that. But yeah, I think for those who were living it in those early days, I think they had to put up with Einstein not being alone, obviously had to put up with a lot of slurs and living in fear all the time, long before the war even started.
Yeah, and assassination on the street, and we'll get a little more into that later. Let's transition to, as you say, the sex, the life part of the show, which was kind of a great, it gives so much insight into Einstein's character, because he's trying to talk during sex, and she's like, I'm concentrating, shut up. And he's like, no, I have this really great idea. And who knew he was such a romantic?
Yes, and what I like about this is also, who knew, and I'll be gentle here, that he's also a flawed person. And this is what I like about this. Oh, I knew this.
He has a crazy sex life.
A crazy sex life, and several marriages. And I'm thrilled to see that, because, again, you have this one understanding of Einstein, at least in the U.S., that he is this sort of saint-like figure because he has melded, religion and nature and politics. And we'll talk about all that, how gracefully he's done all that. So you think of him as this sort of peaceful old man, if you will. And I'm not saying he's not peaceful, but he's got his kinky side too, and so that just shows that he's a full human. And so I'm really looking forward to this show showing us the whole Albert Einstein.
So some things we get with him and Betty in this first scene, he says monogamy is not natural. Why
Right.
can't I love you and Elsa? And Betty has this
Yes.
great retort. Says, for a man who understands the universe, you sure don't understand a lot about people. And that's clearly true as we progress through the story.
So I think that's funny. He doesn't know a lot about people, but he knows a lot about human nature. And I'll say, some of his famous quotes about how stupid people can be, and how you can know everything about the universe, but you can't know everything about people because they're just not so bright. And so he has an understanding about how people act, I think, but he doesn't understand the intimate dynamics between people.
It's that
the
unpredictability
subtleties.
factor that
Yes.
it just alludes to him. He's like, but that's not the most logical choice. And we even see that, I mean, we're skipping ahead a little bit here, but he jokes with somebody where he's like, it felt like forever. Obviously, time can't go at two different speeds, so, scratch that, but you understand what I'm saying. And it's like, of course, it's a turn of phrase.
Right.
But he's very specific, a very literal person, which was interesting.
It's interesting, but I also, when I think of professors diving into their books, I think of them as not very good people persons. They prefer their books. Like he even says in the beginning, I'm not here for politics. And of course, later we'd see how much he went on to influence politics and the bomb and all that sort of stuff. But he really wants out of that as much as he can. He says, like, I don't want French. I don't want to go to the zoo. I'm not into zoology. I don't want botany. Like, give me my math and physics. So he would be, I think, very happy just having sex here and there and sticking to his
daydreaming.
books. Yes,
that's what he's about.
daydreaming,
He's the poetic
Yes.
scientist.
Yes.
In this next scene, transitioning from this scene to the classroom scene, he's avoiding a call from someone. We're not quite sure who or what relationship that is. We'll get into it later, but he's very adamantly avoiding this call. And he goes to teach a class. He has a lecture. And in that lecture, he discusses, he has a couple questions. He says, what is time? How do we discuss motion? And it's a function of time. This kind of blew my mind. These are things that, you hear sometimes, or maybe you learned like once in high school a long time ago, maybe discussed it, but to hear it laid out in this way made it very clear to me what we're talking about, which is great because I was saying before we got on air, physics, not my strong suit. Applied theory, not so much. Like I need like chemistry, basic science, totally good. As soon as they were like, so there's going to be additional math and theory, I was like, we're not together anymore.
I cannot.
It's too far out of my reach. But here I didn't feel lost in this great lecture Einstein is giving.
So I think that's really an important point. I think they're trying to show the human side of Einstein. I felt that they're glossing over is the wrong word, but they're just touching on the science and moving on. They're really telling the story of the person, and they're not getting deep into the science. Although when I was going to the Nat Geo site and looking at some of the quotes that Ron Howard said, he really said that and first of all, it's amazing. I highly recommend that everybody go to the Nat Geo site, because when you see how many people worked on making this happen, I mean, it's just a city in and of itself. But he said he really wanted to treat the filming of it like a classroom, because he wanted everyone in the production to get behind learning about Einstein and learning about the classroom. But I don't think they go into science very much. They leave it very much like anybody can get what we're talking about here.
I like
today.
that they use science as a way to structure the story.
Yeah.
Science is only relative as it relates to Einstein's desire to learn. So, and by that I mean he's interested. What drives him is he needs to know how do things travel through space.
Yes.
It's like, if it's not empty, I believed in ether, but I disproved that, but I can't replace that knowledge. And so this entire episode is just it's completely bound together by those questions. Every moment we come back to, he's either making a discovery or re-asking that question.
Yes, and I want to get to one of his famous quotes if I can. So, imagination is more important than knowledge, one of Albert Einstein's favorite quotes. And I think you see that in his youth. You see how he's constantly questioning, constantly thinking, constantly daydreaming. He's saying like, I imagined I was light and I was traveling and I saw this light travel. And then they play it out in the scene with the bikes, which is so sweet. And then it ends up in that field where they come together. So you have, again, this idea of Albert Einstein, the romantic Albert Einstein. But you can see where his mind is always imagining and going beyond, which at that time was Newton physics. And so he's trying to push that envelope.
Yeah, it was really, it was cool. I liked going back to the classroom when he sits the class down and they're talking about this long beam of light traveling through space and encouraging the kids to like sit back and close their eyes. And then, of course, we get juxtaposition of that to 1918 with young Einstein. He's learning the laws of sines and cosines in Germany, and there's strict repetition, and there's no room for thought. It's
Right.
just say what the answer is
Or
and
imagination
go.
or expression or it's
anything.
just rote. Yeah, spit it out. Yeah.
Yes, you're looking at the windows. Clearly, you couldn't have been paying attention, which we now know is ridiculous. Kids listen in all kinds of ways. I have been to both types of schools. The schools where you just repeat and do as you're told, and the imagination kind. I can tell you the imagination kind are much better. When you need to go sit in the reading circle for a few minutes, like, go do that. It's good times.
So I thought Ron Howard made an excellent choice there. Listen to me, Miss Director. But, rather than take the story point by point by point, they fool around with time.
Yeah.
So they keep going from the future to the past, to the present, to the past, to the present, to the past. And then, of course, there's that great quote that he has, past, present, and future are but a stubborn illusion. So I love how Ron Howard plays with, he's traveling in his mind, really, and then they take us back to the late 1800s. I thought that was great, and it kept the story from being slow or too didactic or too literal.
I think it also explores this idea of the human condition where we're constantly repeating our own mistakes just in different ways.
Oh, nice.
And seeing Einstein, who's this brilliant man, also live in that cycle of just, but I love this person, but science. But I want to impress you, but not at the cost of truth. He's very deliberate in how he wants to live his life and what he says. And we get that when his dad comes in, and his dad is like, look, you're not going to get anything out of being rebellious. You need to go back, as most sane parents would be
right,
like,
yeah.
Get your butt back in school,
Totally.
son.
His
I don't
dad's
know
being
who
a
you think
dad.
you are.
Cut him some slack.
Yes, he says you need a degree. And then he drops huge, giant bombs. Not only do you need to go back in there, but I will be able to protect you again because the entire family, except for you, is moving to Italy, and we're bankrupt, so we're not leaving you with much.
I thought, so this was something else that I didn't know about Einstein, again, which is why I'm so grateful that we're going back to his youth. I thought that was a huge blow, and I am surprised. And I know it did shape him as a person because he became independent so quickly and so young, and you see that thread throughout his whole life if he's just kind of a loner in a way. I mean, he doesn't treat his marriages really like marriages. He's kind of in and out of them because that's what's good for him. So he has that thread throughout his whole life, but what a shocker. And I really, my heartstrings were tugged there because I was like, wow.
It was one of those moments where I felt, I really like when parents test their children in safe, healthy ways. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be the classic stage mom who's driving your kid to insanity. But I also think that as smart as Einstein was, and as disciplined as he could be in the things he wanted to be, I think there's a great lesson in, like, you need to be disciplined in everything.
In everything,
you need to stay focused. And at the end of the day, Dad was right because he could not weasel. He couldn't talk his way out of, he couldn't test his way out of what he needed to do. He had to first learn the things. For a guy who thinks time is relative, he also thinks, like, oh, I can just learn things in whatever order. And to some extent he can, but there's a balance. And I think I saw a lot of love where the dad's like, oh my God, my kid is so passionate and so cool, but if he doesn't get his life together, he's never going to be the man he needs to be. And I really like that. I liked this father-son relationship. I like when we can show people struggling even though they love each other. And I think, and especially without stupid kind of drama where we're yelling and throwing things.
Well, what I liked even more than that is the relationship he has with, I'll call his adopted father, for lack of a better expression. So it just goes to show you how much of life is luck, because I think his secondary family, where he went to learn so he could ultimately get into the Zurich University, is the family that fostered his creativity, that said the best thing about you is your imagination and you are here to say your words. And Einstein at that point was very much like, oh, nobody ever wants to hear from me. Nobody ever likes what I have to say. And that new father, if you will, or adopted father was like, not at this table. At this table, we want to hear it all. And you see that really blossom. And I think what would Einstein have been like? Did he not have that experience? So that was a
Ron
little
Howard
bit of
said
fate
one of
for
the
him.
things that he loved about the show, Ron Howard said, was that it showed how close we came to not having an Einstein.
Yeah,
But there's
absolutely.
constantly these moments where, had anything else gone a different way, Einstein wouldn't have been the person we knew him to be. Before he becomes the person we know him to be, he decides to go back to school in Germany and try. He gives the good old college try. He's like, okay, Dad, you said I have to go. And he's experiencing panic attacks. And what I find so interesting about his genius is how he isn't swayed by what the doctor's like, you don't have fever. He's like, but I'm feeling
Find
heated.
one.
He's like, you don't understand. Like, I know what I'm experiencing. And this is really kind of funny to play on, like, we as a modern audience know, like, okay, this is a panic attack. Like, you're feeling hot, you're dizzy, you can't concentrate, you're having trouble breathing. Classic signs of a panic attack. But it's not diagnosable yet. but he's still so firm in his knowledge of self and his confidence that he's like, okay, but something is actually wrong here. I'm not crazy.
Yeah, and I love that from early on, and you'll see this, of course, with him as an older man as well. He just doesn't listen to other people, and I do love that about him.
Yes.
So.
Hey, when you're genius, you just got to go for it.
You just don't have to listen to people. That is not the case in my life. Gosh darn it.
So he asked the doctor to deem him physically unfit to finish school, which I did not know was a thing. We also see him get pummeled. I found it interesting that boxing was one of the ways that he became an upstanding gentleman in Germany at the time, because he's just getting the stuffing beat out of him and going to classes he doesn't care about. So obviously anyone would leave. So he leaves for Italy to study at the University of Zurich Polytechnic. His father's not happy about this.
Oh no, his father's mad in every way, shape, or form. He's mad because he didn't take his advice. He's mad because he's going to Zurich to basically do what he wants and study what he wants rather than get the general engineering degree. And then he's mad that he went to his mother for the money.
And we're not even there yet. This is before we even get to that point. Because at this point,
jumping ahead. Sorry.
He just gets there and he finds out the space isn't. Nope, those are notes from something else. Okay, so he goes down there, not happy. Mom says, you should let him in, but Dad's not feeling it. This is when we go back to our modern times. We come out because someone has run back into the classroom and says, Walter Rathenow is the person that we saw at the top of the show being assassinated.
Right.
We find out very quickly.
Close friend.
This is a very close friend of Alfred's. Betty is, as we said before, knows that they need to get out of Dodge immediately.
Elsa.
I'm so sorry. Yes. Elsa knows they need to get out. Elsa also knows about Betty. She says, I know why you need Betty, and it's not to answer your phone calls.
Women are not stupid.
No.
Even Albert Einstein should know that women are not stupid, and we know what is up.
Yeah, that awkward exchange between Betty and Elsa, just through the looks without saying anything, I was like, get out of there, Betty, it's dangerous.
Played by Emma Watson, who I think is doing a great job.
Yes.
Everyone is here. Johnny Flynn, too, young.
Yes.
Albert Einstein, so cute is he. Yeah,
he's adorable.
He's so super sweet. And I know you have so much to talk about. I'm just going to do a
Go.
tiny interjection here. The makeup on Johnny Flynn. So hats off to the makeup artist, and that is, one of them is Sunu Misha. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Johnny Flynn in real life is blonde with blue eyes.
That's amazing.
And so what they did with his hair and wigs, and
it's a really good dye job. Whatever they've done, the color matches his skin tone. You would never, I would never think he's a blonde. No,
never. So that's great.
What I like in this scene is that Elsa is genuinely worried about Albert's mental health, which I don't think we see a lot, especially in this time period. It's usually like, man up, get your stuff together. But she says you need to stop and pause. You grieve. Yes. So I thought it was a really beautiful moment.
It is, and I thought it showed. I was happy to see that he accepted her invitation there. I wasn't sure because she goes to him with open arms, and I wasn't sure if he was just going to, as you say, man up or shut the emotions down and close the door on her. But he doesn't. He accepts that invitation, and I'm happy to see, because I don't know this side of Albert Einstein, I'm happy to see that he's capable of that exchange.
I think it proves that Albert is a trustworthy, protagonist for the show, because at the top he says, I love both Hugh and Elsa,
right?
And
why can't I have both? Well, let me tell you something, mister.
Well, I think obviously that could just be a selfish thing, and not about love, but completely about self. But I think in Albert Einstein's case, he just genuinely was like, I can love more than one person. This is not a hard thought for me to conceive of.
Yes, and but what's interesting, what is a hard thought for him to conceive of, is why that's just not going to roll okay. So we're back to how he doesn't get how human beings work, or how women work, and how society works, etc.
Yes, so he's like, I'm okay with it, but I don't understand why you're not okay with this.
Get with the program, everybody.
We see some Nazis. They're just Nazis outside, saying the revolution is coming and Germany will rise again. We learn Einstein is a target when the police stopped by. They found his name on part of the paper. They were able to kill the guy's assassins, but it's a large group. There's not much they can do. Even Elsa points out, how many? How fringe is it? 150? What are we dealing with here?
Right, yeah.
She wants facts. So now she wants them to move to the Baltic Sea. And here we get some more interesting facts about Einstein. He's like, I will not cower in front of bullies.
Right, and let them win, as he sees it. Although later on in the show, he changes his position because it just gets too dangerous.
Yeah, but in that moment, I always just thought it was like, oh, trouble, leave. I didn't know there was a emotional fight for him to stay, even though he doesn't like Germany. There's this, and even though he's a staunch internationalist, there's a little bit of nationalist pride there of like, this is my land, it's where my people are from, and we're gonna stay. Like, nobody's gonna kick me out of here.
See, I actually didn't take that in the same way, because earlier in the show, as you mentioned, he's an internationalist and he's denouncing Germany and he didn't want to go back to Germany for studies. What I felt or interpreted from that scene when he's like, I'm not going, and then they'd win and I'm not going to kowtow to bullies, is I have my work. Like, I'm an established person here. I'm at the university. I'm not shifting my life, my work, my studies where I teach. I felt it more about his work.
Interesting, because he didn't seem too hung up on staying to teach. Like, it wasn't like, but what about my classes or anything? It was all about the bullies and these awful people kind of invading.
Yes.
And you know, he got job offers everywhere, and
True.
And as he's proven, he kind of just needs his imagination to get from one point to the other. There's an interesting scene with I'm gonna say the name wrong. I think it's Fritz Haber, who is a Jewish-born but converted scientist.
Fascinating.
Great conversation about whose side are you really fighting on. He was a soldier in World War I. And Einstein is kind of, and converted Christianity. Einstein does not think that he's a war hero or should call himself a war hero. And he certainly thinks that he's turned his back on his people.
Right.
He says, and good old Fritz is like, dude, they didn't win the party. Your friend is getting a national holiday for his funeral. Germany is good. You don't need to worry. And Einstein's like, you're not paying attention.
The facts, right? You're not seeing the facts. It's fascinating to me because I think of Einstein as someone who is not religious, although someone who's spiritual. So I think he has said before that he doesn't believe in a personal God, but something must connect everything. There's a great quote, let me see if I can find it, from the show about religion. Nature is God, all things are connected, and every question must have a definite answer. That's right from the show. So he has this sense of spirituality, but I never thought of him as sort of identifying as Jewish in the religious sense. I'm
not sure that he does.
I'm not sure he does either. It might be just heritage.
Yeah, at least from a lot of my Jewish friends, I'm talking to them about, you know, the difference between religious studies and cultural studies, or just lifestyles in general. Like, to be culturally Jewish is the thing that you're born into. Like, the religion is the practice part of it. Everything else is family, it's blood, it's who you are. And I definitely see how it's clear he's close to us, even if he doesn't agree with his family a lot of time. He loves them and he craves their attention. So I'll be interested to see if they get more into that, if maybe a holiday brings him maybe a little bit closer to the fold. Like, I'll be interested to see how that changes throughout his life.
Yes, me too. I'm interested to see how so many of these things are going to progress. I mean, as a little side note, Ron Howard and National Geographic have really bitten off something huge here. So I commend them for first scripted series that they've ever done, and then taking on this kind of topic, which kind of, when I think about it, I think like, I can't believe no one did this before. But maybe because it is so grand. Like, we all have this one general concept of Albert Einstein as this, you know, warm, magnanimous, brilliant person, the brilliant person, right, that we all think of. And there's so much to discover here. So just like you're saying, I'm really interested to see where he goes also culturally, and then how he veers towards the war and the bomb, and then obviously more sex life is coming, and his idea of fidelity and what that means to him, because I don't think he sees it as cheating. We've sort of touched on this before. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Absolutely. The next scene we get was really emotional for me, because it just was hitting at a lot of different angles, and mirrored a lot of what's happening currently, and was freaky. And that's the funeral scene, juxtaposed with this very fiery, not political, because it's a lecture, but it's also a very political statement in, I'm not giving you guys the day off from class.
Right.
And not only that, but I'm going to say we're celebrating this man's death. This is Professor Leinard, who wanted to kick Einstein out of, he says theory of relativity was an affront to science. And he believes not in theory, but in practice. The difference being, in order for him to believe it, he needs to touch it. He needs to be able to prove it in front of his own eyes. Whereas Einstein was proving things mathematically. He was using theories and numbers to get to a final conclusion. And it's kind of interesting to me that was the kind of German nationalism that rose up, and maybe that's what more insulted Einstein than anything else, was this idea of like, it's got to be in the practice. It's not about imagination. It's not about thought. It's about what's practically here.
Right, and that intellectually they were stifling. They were
Yes.
really trying to hold things back. And they just didn't want to see what was already accepted practice, Newtonian physics, be toyed with. And that they took that to be. So this is fascinating to me how, and we keep doing this, people. We do it like every time there's a war, how they're bringing in science and politics to be one thing. So in that lecture, in that classroom, he's really saying this is an affront to Germany, that German physics will no longer be if we let someone like Einstein come in and play with these fantasies.
Well, and then
that
he
has.
spews into this crazy nonsense of like, and then the foreigners will take over. And I was like, where is this? You just out of nowhere were like, and also.
I think he's referring to the Jewish people there.
He
like they're not with us,
absolutely
where
is.
they're the foreigners. Yeah.
But also that's just like anyone who
Right.
isn't one of us, anyone who
That's
doesn't
right.
apply to that practical sense of science is not one of ours. And it was just too eerily similar.
So you bring up a great point. I was hoping that we'd get to this. It is fascinating to me how what we're seeing basically 1930s is mirrored with what's going on today, and how you can have, you know, people in the White House who don't believe in climate change, or perhaps denouncing science, or maybe the EPA, our trusted EPAs, which by the way was put in by a Republican, Richard Nixon, Republican, started the EPA. So you can have the EPA getting just sledgehammered out of its budget, and
A bunch of national parks up to be just removed from the protection list, which is
making no
stupid.
sense at all.
Oh, boy.
So frightening that, like, I guess just like Einstein, maybe we don't really learn from our mistakes and we keep doing the same thing.
Absolutely. And we see that, I don't think, any more clearly than in how the funeral wraps up. We've got people coming on there like, oh gosh, it's Einstein, thank you. It's so nice to meet you. We see protesters come up.
That little boy who wants the autograph.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is a horrifying moment of he's literally running from a child.
I know.
A child who then only wants his autograph because he doesn't
know.
understand the violence that is happening. And then his father spits in this guy's, like, his hero's face. I want to grow up and be just like you. And then you, oh
Yeah.
my God, it happened so fast, and it was so emotionally raw.
And horrifying. Yes. And, you know, I have to say, since you talk about emotionally raw, I'm really looking forward to seeing that be heightened in the episodes to come. Because, you know, we have so much that's, as we say, politics, religion, and sex, and violence, and war, and bombs. So it's all coming down the pipeline. And I'm really looking to see that emotional choking almost coming from Jeffrey Rush playing Einstein, which I think will probably be there given the fabulous cast and script that we have.
Yes.
But I mean, he kept it together pretty well. You could see the terror in his face, but he went right home and he was like, yep, gotta go. You were right. We're out of here.
Yes, he does. He comes after he goes to the general store and sees them on conference there, and he's like, it's only because, you know, and he sends something off. The guy's not speaking at all. He's like, oh, my customers requested it. What could I do? And
love
Einstein's
this.
like, and that's the moment we need to leave. Like, the minute it becomes acceptable, where good people are like, there's nothing I could do. You can't be protected anymore.
Right, and when Einstein says right back to him, everybody has a choice.
Yes.
So don't give me that your people wanted this or your customers wanted this book, Mein Kampf, right here on the countertop. Everybody has a choice.
The shame you feel
and
from this should
yes.
be a good notice to you that this is not a good thing.
And so what I noticed in that, so it's just a tiny detail, but he didn't get his change. He was so disgusted that he was like, yeah, I'm not taking my change back from you.
I'd rather leave.
I'd rather leave.
Let's move on to something better.
Okay.
Because
All right.
we get some rosy sunshine moments in here. And this is when, we already spoke about, Einstein goes to take this test, fails everything but the two subjects he's interested in.
I love it.
But you get this professor, and my bless professors like this, who are
Yes.
like, okay, I see that you're talented and you're smart. We can't let you slide on things, but I can give you a safe space to go learn until you're ready to come back next year and do it the right way. And so he sends them to the Winterlands. What did you think about them?
Well, so we talked about this a little bit before. I loved them, and it just said to me, oh my gosh, what a twist of fate. And would we have had Einstein had he not fallen into this lovely
Yeah.
family that is all about imagination and open dialogue and bring your thoughts and be a rebel and disrupt the norm and think big and speak loudly. And so I thought, what a joy for him to get what he can't get from his own family. And another tiny point there before I let you
go.
and speak. Just goes to show you sort of that classic expression, it does take a village to raise a child. You know,
Yes.
his parents did so well by him, but they can't be everything to everybody. And just when Einstein needs it, he lands where he needs to be.
And I knew he was doomed as soon as Marie opened the door. I was like, oh, well,
yeah.
here's our
Oh,
love.
yeah.
She's this gorgeous blonde.
yes,
And then she's smart and can crack right back at him and keep up with him.
And I do love that at least the sense that we get about all of Einstein's love so far is that they're all super smart.
Yeah, he ain't wasting time on dummies,
Love it.
okay? Like,
Love
he's
it.
not here for your physical appearance. He's here for the brain. So...
We think. Well, it might be a combination of both.
Probably both. I mean,
Yes.
he hasn't done bad in that department either, so he's cool. He winds up wooing Marie in the field with his crazy light theory as he's traveling on the bikes, and she's like, is that it? He's like, so far, yes, but I'm working on it, and clearly I'm brilliant, and I'm young, and I'm beautiful. You should love me. Let's see. So he learns a lot from them. He goes on to do great things. He goes back and takes the test. Does great in everything but French, which is passable. It
Right.
is elementary.
I thought the French was pretty good, actually.
It was all right. Didn't use the right tense for some of the words, but the professor was like, get in there, go learn. And it's amazing. Wait, oh, so then after that, before he goes, no. After he takes the test, he's with his uncle and his father in their shop. He is helping them fix something with his physics brain that his dad didn't necessarily think he needed. It was brilliant.
So I love this scene too because it's when he confronts his father, and you knew that this had to come at some point. And he says, "Don't think I'm going to go into engineering. I'm not. I want to be a physicist."
You have such an aptitude for it,
That's
son.
right, but you have such an aptitude for it, son. And he says, "No, I'm not going to do it. And in fact, I really can't tell you. I can't have you telling me what to do anymore. My life is my own. The best lesson you ever taught me was to be independent early on. I've asked mom for money. She's giving it to me. I'm
Not
going
even
to
mom,
study
but mom's family. And
Right,
mom didn't
right.
know. Like,
She didn't know?
Yeah, he says, because his dad turns around and is like, now maybe he lied and covered up for his mom. But the sequence of events was, dad turns back to mom and says, did you know about this? And Einstein jumps in and says, no, she didn't.
Right. You're right. You're so right.
So-
Although she sort of seemed to know.
They sort of be like,
but I thought he
we
was
don't want to talk
protecting her,
about
maybe.
this.
Right,
So
yes,
it could easily be like, don't take it
Yes.
out on her. I did
Yes.
this. I'm leaving anyway. You can hate me.
Yeah.
What I liked before we get to the blow up is that they're pushing for marriage. They're like, oh, you're so sweet with her. And so I was talking to her mother, and we really like the courtship. And Einstein's like, marriage?
What are you talking about?
Stop rushing. I'm
I've
doing
got-
things.
I've got life questions to answer. I've got the universe to figure
He
out,
needs
people.
all of the answers, which, what a heart-melting line. I'm going to find those answers
I'm
out.
gonna find those answers.
Oh my God, yes. So it says my future is mine and mine alone. Granny's gonna pay for everything, which also sheds some light on the father, who is just running from broken down business to broken down business. You think you're smarter than me? He is smarter than you. It's okay. He just is smarter.
In so many ways. In so many
Yes.
ways. Yes, but it's so you have that male ego dichotomy there. The two of them are sort of going at it. And again, I think this is a natural thing for most fathers and sons. At some
sure.
point, you separate from one another, and there's this competition going on. But the father is a bit jealous, I almost want to say.
He's absolutely sit over there with your crazy people in Switzerland. What's happened to you?
Right.
I like what I know we're jumping around a little bit, but time's relative, so deal with us.
Time is relative, people. If you get one thing out of this show, it's that time is relative.
Mr. Winterland has some great parting words to Alfred. He says, their knowledge is their weakness, while your imagination is your
Yes.
gift.
Yes.
And I want that etched on my body because it's so
Yes.
beautiful and kind of, I think makes you feel a little limitless. Like, if
Yes.
you can dream it, you can be it. And that's like a
Anything
really
is
great.
possible.
Yes.
Anything is possible. Yes, and I love that family for that,
Yes.
for fostering that in him.
So what order do we want to do these things in? Let's go to Mileva.
Yes.
Marriage. Who's the only person to score higher than Einstein
Love
at
it.
Zurich, and who, when Einstein said, "Oh, I was looking for the physics class," read him up one way and
Love
down
it.
the other
Oh,
with
yeah.
her knowledge, even so much into bringing somebody who has irrelevant thoughts, ancient thoughts, was like, yeah, but without him, we wouldn't have this guy, or him, and then you wouldn't be here in a physics class, so you can go to
Kiss
hell.
my ass, baby.
Exactly.
So what I loved about this was the foreshadowing of quantum physics, because she talks about the through mythology, in the eye we have vision because they created
Aphrodite created fire and put it in your eye.
And then they go on to talk about how physicists picked up from that, and how there's only so much that an eye can see, but there's more going on in the universe than the eye can perceive. And so that's kind of, I'm not a scientist, and I welcome all the
But you
people at the
explained
chat.
that well. Come on, no, that was
all
great.
the people in the chat can sort of diss on me here, but that's kind of the basis of quantum physics, is that
Yeah.
if you can, what you can see, what your mind can perceive, is only one iota of what's actually going on in the universe, and so much is happening at a quantum level. So I love that foreshadowing that she gives us to what he's going to ultimately give a platform to.
Yes, and after that brutal reading, we come back into the present and learn, like, that's his
That's
ex-wife.
the crazy lady.
That is the person he's been
Yes.
avoiding the phone call with
Yes.
since the very, very first moment of this show.
And I so want to know about that.
I want to know about their relationship. How do they get together? What do they study? Why is she calling? And then we get all this other new information with a little bit later that, you know, maybe she's involved in some things.
Yes.
Communist things.
And to her credit, it seems like she might be on the right side of that equation.
Yep.
We're not so sure yet. But so I feel like a dope because I am so fascinated with the life of Albert Einstein. Again, the man as much as the scientist. But I did not know that he played a violin, and I did not know that he was married twice. I knew that he was married and had cheated, and quite a bit. I didn't know he was married twice, so I was excited to learn, or fascinated to learn, that this was a first wife.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to me, like, how long. I could look these things up, but I kind of want the show to reveal it to me. It's fun to watch everything unfold.
I did the same thing. I was like, oh, should I Google? I'll hold out.
Yeah. I figure maybe at our last episode, we'll do a fact check episode where we can maybe see how accurate the show was. But for right now, I'm just really enjoying this journey. Our last scene is General Raymond Geist, who is our friend from Mad Men.
Yes, Vincent Kartheiser.
You have a very challenging last name, Vincent, but every time you show up, you're gold.
You're so fun. You are so fun and gold. I like that. Yeah,
no, he's an amazing
gold.
actor.
Yeah.
No one can play, pardon my French a little bit here, but like, nobody plays a douchebag quite like Vincent. Like, he plays, and he doesn't have a heart of gold, and yet you still kind of like him.
I know he's swarmy, and
It's
yet you really
weird.
just want him to succeed.
I don't know how he balances those two feelings, but he
He's
does
like
it
a
so
tadpole
well.
somehow. There's something a little slippery about
But there's
him.
also, I think there's a like here in his role as General Raymond Geist, it's sincere. Like, it isn't slimy for slimy's sake. Like, he has very direct purposes. He's like, I've been given a mission by J. Edgar Hoover to figure out who the hell you are before I let you into my country.
Absolutely.
And as slimy as that can be from Einstein's when he's like, I was invited into your country. Like, I don't know why you're even questioning
You came to me, folks.
Yeah, like, I'm a genius. Okay, you might look around you here.
Get with the
and
program.
See, and nothing pissed me off more when he was like, yeah, but why would you want to leave here? He's like, have you looked around here?
Yeah.
I don't need a lesson on German politics. I wouldn't give you one. You're not smart enough to be in my class. If this fight lasts for most of next episode, I'll be fine with it. It was fun watching the two of them spar.
Yes.
I would love. I'll try to get Vincent in here, guys, because I would love to talk to him about working with Jeffrey Rush and what that is like.
Noted. It looks like we might be having some guests. Maybe some executive producers might be hopping on the show.
Oh my God!
We'll keep you posted, people, because that'd be super fun. But I will try to get Vincent on the show because that would be great as well.
Yes. So Raymond Geist asked Alfred Einstein and his wife, what is your political creed?
Right.
And from what we know, Einstein, not too interested in political creeds.
No, and here we are again seeing how science is going to overlap with politics, with religion, with culture, with war, all the things he didn't want anything to do with. So just fascinating, and I'm just so appreciative that Nat Geo's taken us on this journey.
Yeah, and he's also a man without a country. We see he applies to denounce his German citizenship when
Early
he's a
on,
child.
he did that, yes.
Before we get to the Nazi craziness,
Right.
he's like a young
don't
man,
need
and
this,
he's like, no, I want to be a man. Another thought the crazy Swiss people put in his head.
He's like, don't define me, and I don't want any barriers or borders around me.
And when he says that's crazy, you don't have a passport now. How will you get around? Luckily, he lives in very connected Germany or Europe, so he's able to travel easily.
You know the Swiss, they're like, everybody's friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And basically, the end lesson of that is Hoover does not trust Einstein. He doesn't think he's loyal because you don't pledge faith to a country, which we know for J. Edgar Hoover, pledging yourself to the establishment is the ideal. That is the ideal citizen. Is you believe in the establishment, you give your life back to it, it supports you. J. Edgar Hoover strongly believes in that and will spy until he can prove that that's what you're doing.
Right. This is a little bit of a foreshadowing of McCarthyism. We're getting to really early on of like country first.
So it's exciting. It's clear that they're going to have to work somewhat with Raymond
because they want out
now.
so
maybe they can call some big wigs at Princeton and they can call their senators and get some things done. But we're not there yet. Right now, they're still in Germany. They still have questions to answer, but they need to get out of there because it's dangerous.
So what are you hoping for in the coming? What are your predictions?
Why don't we get into some predictions?
All right. Well, then why don't we?
And now,
my theremin
your
music.
AfterBuzz TV
predictions. Yes, predictions for next week. As I already said, I really want the fighting. Watching him do verbal battle with people, especially knowing how much more intelligent he is than most of the people he'll be confronting. I think just as an audience member, it's easy laughs right there, and I like that. I'm looking. God, the cinematography here was so beautiful,
so lovely.
It's such a well shot show. I'm really hoping for more of that. The Wheatfield, though I thought was a little corny, really worked cinematically, and I liked that. I want to see his wife talk more about the love. I want to get more of a sense. Like, it's clear she's not happy with Betty, but we also know this happens multiple times, and partners make exceptions for one another. Different relationships have different rules. I'd like to get an idea of what her boundaries are.
Yes, so I'm very much in the same boat. I want to see what's going on, all the nitty-gritty in the U.S., all that sort of spy, Manhattan Project. I know that that's coming, so I really can't wait to get into that. That's probably going to be a little bit more down the road. But in the subsequent immediate episodes, I really want to know more about, I keep saying sex life, but I don't mean that so flippantly. I really want to know the intricacies of the love life. Is it love? Are there feelings there? What's driving him to go outside his marriage?
Is he just a modern day sex addict, the kind of guy who's like, I have everything, so I should get everything?
Yes, like what is it? Is it purely biology that's pushing him? Is it intellectual challenges? He needs more voices, female voices. Is it just a release? I don't know. I really want to understand again the intricacies of this love and affection, and then the rules that he breaks and how he's reprimanded for that, because he can't get away with everything. I'm guessing. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm gonna try to do, because it is a history show, and I was just so enwrapped in this first episode. But I think I'd like to maybe get you guys some side by side pictures next week, so we can see what does this real person look like, and maybe
that's good.
I don't want to do too much research on Einstein himself, but maybe I can get you guys some notes on what this person did outside of the role we currently see them in, just because there's a rich knowledge, and because it's Nat Geo, I think, again, like I was saying earlier, back when TLC was TLC and we were getting really good quality educational programming.
Ooh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago, but it was a lot of fun. I think to get really good information in the same way that sometimes PBS is able to deliver us really accurate historical information in very entertaining venues. I think that we can do that here. I want to see how accurate they are. Can we trust Nat Geo's scripted, or are they pulling more of a History Channel where they get flippant with facts?
I think they're going directly from Walter Isaacson's book here, Einstein, His Life and Universe. So I think they're trying to be pretty true to the history, but of course they're probably going to take some.
We're going to hold their feet to the fire and see how close they do.
Good for us. Good for us. So I have a quick question for you before we go, because I don't know where. This is only my second show, people. So I don't know where. Is that our clock?
That is our clock.
So we are on.
We're getting close.
Borrowed time. Okay. What are you hoping for personally out of this show? And I'll just answer it for myself so you sort of know what I mean by that. I'm really looking forward to getting more of the sense of what science and religion are for him. So he was so formative of being agnostic and yet being pro the harmony of science and religion together. And to my knowledge, the only scientist that is not an atheist and who still believes there's harmony to be seen between those two domains. So I'm really looking forward to that, personally exploring intellectually that concept. What about you?
What I'm interested in is a lot less about Einstein and a lot more about the women that surround him. We've seen so many women, and it's clear the men gave him his start, but the women kind of kept him afloat.
Yes.
Kind of pushed him to be more. I think guys were kind of like, oh my gosh, you're smart and you're witty and you're funny and it's the boys club and we like you and all of that, whereas the women are like, we see you think you're smart.
Right.
But they all read him, and I think that he likes that kind of pushback.
Challenge.
And I think these women have important places in history, but we don't know too much about them. I'm looking forward to getting to know them on a more kind of personal level.
Yes. Okay, Nat Geo, please deliver, because we want more.
We have a lot. We're very demanding. But I do want to say thank you guys so much for joining us for our very first after show for Genius. This has been an incredible ride. Until next time, where can they find you?
Oh, absolutely. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at DinnerPartyCHGO, and I'm still like the only person in the building who's on Facebook. You can find me there at Elysabeth with a YS Alfano and thedinnerparty.tv.
Hey guys, I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me all over the internet at Joelle Monique and every week at blackgirlnerds.com. If you head over to the site right now, you can check my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'll have an interview next week with W. Kamau Bell from CNN's United Shades of America, which I'm really excited about, and talking about Supergirl and Raul Coley, who is my future husband. So until next time, join us back here next week. Thanks, guys.
Later, AfterBuzzers.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
I mean, I'm really excited that you're reaching out for...
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.